Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health with Sara Banta. I'm a busy wife, mom of 3, and an NANP certified supplement professional, but that's not all. I'm also the founder of the multi-award-winning Accelerated Health Products, a brand offering innovative natural supplements to optimize your health. And this podcast isn't just a source of information, it's a community for you. And we're all here to learn and grow on our health journeys. We're all starting from different places, and that's okay. And this is the springboard to learning, and the free group coaching on Telegram is where we continue learning together, and you ask your questions. I post tips and tools to deepen your health and to keep you motivated in moving forward. So here's what you can expect. New episodes every Monday and Wednesday with in-depth health discussions and expert guests. Hot topic issues that are in the news and that are fun every Friday to keep things interesting, and then of course followed with the health group coaching on Telegram. The details are all on my website, SaraBantaHealth.com. Have you thought about detoxing but a little scared? Well, I've created over 10 detox easy cleanses that will help reset your body while feeling great. Yes, you will feel great day one. So just take my detox quiz. Link is on the website, SaraBantaHealth.com, to find the right one for you. And if you don't know which supplements to start with, just complete my health goals form for free on the website, and I will put together a protocol for you. So just taking a few steps forward will keep you moving forward, and literally very soon your life will change. And today we have a guest exemplifying what we are talking about. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Jamie Kennedy is the resilient mama. She's a wife and a homeschooling mama of 3. God bless her. Unaligned with the mainstream treatment plan for her 2 children diagnosed with chronic diseases, epilepsy and alopecia, ones that aren't so easy, guys. She was determined to find the root cause solution. And this is just an example of just don't quit. There are answers. Welcome, Jamie. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Well, I did not want to talk more about your bio because I want you to dig into your journey. And you are like me, pain to purpose. We probably, when we first got that diagnosis of our child, we're probably like, oh my God, why me? But honestly, that is the fruit of our labor, right? That is the seed that has started our path and our journey and our purpose. And if you had asked me in college, well, what's your purpose there in life? And I'd say, I don't know. I really don't even know what I want to do with my life. Eventually, I want to be a mom. But now I can honestly say it's so clear what my purpose is. And it's such an amazing feeling. And that's something that I'm teaching my kids, every challenge, you just need to know that that is strengthening a muscle in you to grow in the directions you need to grow. So with that being said, tell us your story.
Sure. And I agree with everything you said. In the midst of the deepest, darkest moments in my story, which I will tell you, I was on my knees saying, why? Why is this happening to me? And now it's like 2020. Hindsight is 2020, and the mission is clear. So I was a natural mama. I did all the right things, and we moved, and I found myself what I didn't know at the time, but living in mold. Mm-hmm. And my son, one night, he woke up and he was having a seizure out of nowhere. Never a symptom, never a signal, never a sign. Perfectly healthy little boy. He was 6 years old, and I was terrified. I thought he was dying in my arms, and it still brings so much emotion. And of course, we took him to the hospital, and as doctors do, running all the labs, running all the tests, and they diagnosed him with epilepsy. And of course, being a natural mama, I was like, okay, well, what triggered this? What caused this? And I was asking those sorts of questions to the doctors and the experts and the neurologists, and they were all very much like, oh, this is very common amongst children. This is very common. And that was not a good enough answer for me.
No.
Common is not normal. Just because something is common does not mean it's normal, and does not mean it's healthy. And I knew that right here in my mama gut, and I was going to figure out a different way. I wasn't aligned with their plan, which was medication, and we'll check them in 2 years.
Right.
And that was not something that was sitting with me in any way, shape, or form. I wanted to know there wasn't connect. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know what led to this. What are the underlying root cause imbalances? And I didn't have those answers. So being in the wonderful world that we live in now with literal information at our fingertips, you can read books, you can listen to podcasts, you can take so many courses and certifications. And that's where I started. I dove in, just reading as many books as I could about the body and health, listening to as many podcasts like this one, to find out what practitioners were out there, who was speaking my language, what path could I take, what protocols could I do. And I ended up doing an integrative health practitioner certification, Stephen Cabral, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how the body functioned, what toxicities and deficiencies created dis-ease in the body, and what we could do to rebalance that from an underlying root cause imbalance. And I enrolled right away, and I started studying right away, simultaneously as well, still diving into reading books and just education. Simultaneously, my daughter lost all of her hair, one of my twins, at the same time. So she was, I think, about 4 years old, and she lost completely bald, all her hair just started falling out in patches, and was diagnosed with alopecia. So I knew that what had to be done for both of them. And I also knew that our children were being plagued with much more than just living a healthy lifestyle. We had to dig deeper. There's deeper things that are going on in our environment and our world that we have to pay attention to. So I started implementing protocols and really focusing on foundations, which I'll go through a little later, which ones I think are important to me. And my son is 5 years seizure free.
Wow, I just got the chills.
And my daughter's hair, I got to keep cutting it because it's down to her booty. Yeah. So, kids are resilient, and they rebalance fast. They really do. They just need to be given the right tools. And unfortunately, the standard American lifestyle and the standard American diet is leading to these standard American diseases at a much faster rate.
Everything is exploding and accelerating at every age group. Cancer in the younger kids is exploding. That's been in the news. I'm not saying anything that's not in the news. Alzheimer's rates, chronic diseases, metabolic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, all of these things are just skyrocketing. And what I've told my kids, because my son was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 9, and that was my aha moment. Like, he looked at me and said, "Mom, why are you crying? You're going to fix me." And I said, "Yes, I am." And that was the beginning. That boy turned 22 2 days ago. And it was so funny because our whole family got blood tests done in the last 6 months. And the doctor said, "Well, he's the healthiest one out of all of you." But it was also a gift to him, because that boy cooks for himself. He cooks wild, organic foods. He doesn't take it for granted. He'd rather go on a bike ride and skiing than drinking out late at night with his friends. Now, that can isolate you in a world like we're in, but do you want to be normal and diseased, or do you want to feel amazing and connect with the people that are like-minded, because they are out there? And it's going to be harder for the younger generation than it is for us, because we don't care anymore, right? We don't care about all that stuff. But it is a different world.
Yeah.
The food system has been hijacked. Food is no longer food. You can't just, my mom and dad did not worry about carbs, proteins, or fats because they were whole food. It didn't matter, right? And right now we have 70% of our food supply is processed foods, and it's not food. And you also touched on mold, and that's just one thing that could be lurking in your household that is causing these things. And I talk a lot about liver health because you've got mold and the spike protein and the artificial sweeteners and the heavy metals and the fluoride in the water and all of these things. And our body just says, no, I can't do it.
Yeah. Convenience is killing our society in every aspect. We're undernourished and overscheduled and underexercised and overfed and underhydrated and overstimulated and underrested. And, 1 in 4 children in the United States have at least one chronic condition. 1 in 15 have multiple chronic conditions. 25 to I think 30 or 43% of children in the US are on at least one medication. And I know from even just my children's peers, I know several children that have been diagnosed with epilepsy that my children know firsthand. And that is just, it's shocking. You think, oh, I'm the only one, but no, it is rampant out there. And unfortunately, what's being sold is accepting common for normal. And it's not. Our symptoms are signals that our bodies are giving that something is out of balance. And if we don't balance it while they're young, it's just going to continue. I always say you have to take the rock out of the shoe. If you have a rock in your shoe and you just say, oh, I've got pain in my shoe, I'm going to just take an Advil, you're just treating the symptom. But that rock is going to wreak havoc if it's there for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months. Think of what's going to happen down the road. And that's really where we have to come from, a root cause perspective of taking a different approach. And I love what you said about your son and his outlook, because I find very much a difference between my children and their outlook and approach to the world. And how they approach eating. And, we'll be out at a festival enjoying ourselves. And, they don't have the dessert because they don't want the dessert, because they know how that's going to make them feel. And so there's this awareness that happens with children who have the unfortunate opportunity and fortunate opportunity to rebalance their body at an early age.
And something that I try to explain to my kids, because they'll say, how can all of my friends eat all that junk and not gain weight? Or they say they feel great. And I'll tell them they don't know what great feels like. So they're numb, right? So when you clean out your body and you're eating clean foods, and then all of a sudden you don't eat a clean meal, you feel hungover. It's because you know what it feels like to feel good. So they never even get that. And It's hard to explain to children, because for you and me, we've experienced that. And we now know what it's like to feel better. But what their normal is feeling good. So they don't understand how these other people can get away with what they're getting away with and still feel okay. But the reality is you don't know the diseases that are lurking inside those bodies. You also don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Like you said, most kids are on some sort of medication. And I have a family member who's a teacher, and she says that it's so sad because the parents just throw medications at their kids. They don't want to even try. They're exhausted. Well, because why? They're moms and their adrenals are burnt out and they are just trying to get through the day and they can't deal with one more thing. And I get it. But at the same time, if you don't address it now, the problem's only going to get bigger,
Yeah.
right? And it's a world where you have to be proactive in detoxification and nutrient density and focusing on those things, because I don't care how many vitamins you're taking or the nutrients you're taking in. If your cells are full of toxins, there's no room for those nutrients to go in. The body can't work. And I'll never forget when I saw my son's blood underneath the microscope, and there were the cells like looked like the little stars, but they were all clumped together. And I don't know biology back then. I didn't know anything. But the practitioner described to me, how are you supposed to get nutrients in when they're all clumped together? When we went back a year later after doing my protocol, the accelerated silver and cleaning up his diet, but back then I didn't even know that much about diet. His cells were nice and dark and plump and big and separate. And it's like, oh, well, now I see how the nutrients can get into the cells and there's room, right? So we're only as healthy as our cells. And that's why we need to look at the toxins in our environment, look at what is coming at our children. So, with that being said, you have healed your 2 children. Can you take us through what you did with each of them and what were your aha moments?
Sure. I think that the first thing that I really did was take an assessment of what are the toxicities that they're surrounded by. What are what's the list, right? And we know that the list can go on and on, but the big offenders for me, EMFs, glyphosate, GMOs, preservatives, parabens, phthalates, forever chemicals, heavy metals, mold, and emotions. And a lot of these things can, as you know, interact with each other. So it can create this spiral effect. And, the EMF with the metals and the plastics with the sleep, all of these things. And for me at the time, the way that I studied, I dove into functional labs and to look at the underlying deficiencies and toxicities that were particular to my children, because I do believe that really simply in balancing health is just looking at underlying toxicities and deficiencies, and just replacing deficiencies and rebalancing and getting rid of and lowering that toxicity threshold, your body will come back into equilibrium. So I remember being in the neurologist's office, and he was like, and I wasn't medicating him, which was a different approach. I think that they're used to everyone coming in and just following the protocol. And I was pushing back at every point. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to figure out what this problem is. And he said, well, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. And I said, well, if there's anyone that's going to find the needle, it's going to be me. And I'm going to run these labs. And I ran organic acid lab, and I ran a hair tissue mineral analysis. And those were the only 2 at the time that I ran. And I found that he had, gut brain connection that was disconnected. And I remember bringing the labs into the neurologist's office, like thinking that he was going to think I was this genius, and like I solved it, and he was like, well, maybe, and I was like, okay, well, and so that's where I started. I started with the gut. I started with the gut, because we know that our gut, it sends the signals to our brain. Our brain receives the signals and sends it back to the gut, and then out to the body to let our body know how to function. And so I started working on gut protocols with all three, because at this point, you're not going to just work with one kid. You're going to work with all three of them. I brought them all through it, and they were little at the time. And I just want to remind mothers out there that it's not easy, but it's necessary. And they couldn't swallow pills at the time. I made AM popsicles and PM popsicles that were smoothies for their AM supplements and their PM supplement. I mean, like, you do what you have to do to get it in them to make sure that they're getting it. And there's tons of ways to do that. Like I said, popsicles, you can just make nice little smoothie popsicles and stick those.
I want to stop you right there and really emphasize this, because I think people just say, I can't do that, or my kid won't take that. I remember when I had to take medicine when I was younger, what did my mom tell me to do? Plug your nose, right? Because my acceleradine iodine, every child needs it. Children need iodine. But does it taste good? No. So what do? You plug your nose. And I had someone in my group actually say, how do I get my 12-year-old to take it? And before I had a chance to answer, this other mom popped in and said, I have him plug his nose, and I can tell when he's not on it because he's miserable and moody, and it has changed his life. And you are giving your child a gift of knowing what it feels good, like to be feeling good, to have energy. Kids don't want to have tantrums. They don't want to be losing attention in class. They don't want to be the one going to the principal's office. They want to do good. And it's so cute when my kids were young and I would give them the easy supplements that they could take on their own, to take ownership. They were so proud of themselves, right? And we would play games. My son could swallow 20 pills at a time, but my youngest, I literally would have to chop them up into fifths, and we would make a game out of it to see if it could actually go down her throat. And she takes care of her health just as well as my son does, because she learned at a young age. And the time you put in at a younger age is going to save you the heartache later. I don't worry about my 2 college-age kids. They're out of sight, out of mind. They are not eating my food. I'm not watching what supplements they're taking. I'm not looking over them. But I know that deep down, they know what it feels like to feel good. And if they get away from that, they're going to come back. And they know how to do it, or they know where to go to ask the question.
Yeah. And I think I laugh because we do the same thing right nowadays. They can swallow, and they're like, I swallowed 4 of these and 1 of these in one shot, and I'm going to do that tomorrow, and it's a game, but I think of how I want to parent. I think of all of the things that I've had to learn how to undo in my 20s and in my 30s and in my 40s, that I don't want them to have to learn how to undo. Let's give them the best start from the beginning. And that is, making sure that they can take a protocol if they have to, because we have to, and so I think it's really important to also give them that confidence that they can do something, teach them a new skill, work on how, if they can't swallow a pill, teach them how to swallow a pill, or create a situation where they can take the supplement and do something hard, because kids feel good about themselves when my kids, I'm telling you, they are so proud of the way that they eat and the way that they take responsibility for their supplements in the morning, and the way that they feel really good, and that they don't, kids at dance or gymnastics will be like, you've never had a Skittle? And they're like, no, and I don't want one.
Right. It's empowering to them. And we all are driven by dopamine. By doing something successful, even if it's taking a pill, is a little boost of dopamine. Okay, so with that being said, you started with the gut, and where did you go from there?
So I would say from gut, we probably went to heavy metals. I worked through the roadmap. I worked through the roadmap of just checking off, all of the boxes, heavy metals, parasites, and last but not least, mold. And sometimes there's, you have to go back to visit things because we know that parasites release toxins and heavy metals. And so you might have to do. So we created kind of our own little roadmap of how we were checking off of our protocol boxes. And we saw, things got worse before they got better. And that's another thing that I always am very open about with parents, is that you have to keep in mind that this is a process and this is a journey. And we have this, back to the convenience. We think that you just take a supplement and things are just going to go in a straight line better. And it's just not the case. Healing is not linear in any way, shape, or form. And I always use the analogy that if you're going to clean out a dusty closet, if you stop in the middle of it, it's going to look like a disaster. You might think, oh my gosh, this is worse. Right. The dust is everywhere. There's things everywhere, but you're taking it out to clean things up and put it back together. Yeah. And so you have to be patient with the process. You have to trust the process. If it's not yourself that's walking you through this, you have to get with a practitioner that you can fully trust, because you do have to trust the process. My son's seizures increased and they got worse. While we were going through protocols, my daughter's hair all fell out. But we trusted, knowing that the body inherently wants to heal. It inherently wants to keep you alive. And what it's doing is keeping you alive. So when you're going through these protocols, you just have to trust your body. You have to trust your protocol and you have to trust your body and adjust, right? If it's too much, back off, slow down, but you have to continue to keep walking through and realize that healing is like this. It's a journey and it's a process. And ultimately, we got to the point where it was weeks without seizures and little baby hairs were growing, and then it got to be months without seizures and hair was down to here, and then it became years. We started counting years and hairs down to there. And we always are going to be doing maintenance protocols, right? Because you have to maintain in this world. We are just assaulted. It's no longer at a point where we can just live healthy, right? We have to make sure that we're getting what we're being assaulted out of our body and make sure we're replenishing what is being deficient out of our body.
I always say that, 20 years ago, my girlfriends would go on a juice cleanse on January 1st for 3 days, and it was kind of a fad thing to do. Now it's essential. Detoxification is absolutely essential if you want. We are salmon swimming upstream. So unless you want to accelerate disease, accelerate aging, you have to be proactive. And it's all the pieces. It's not just the nutrients from the proper foods. And it's not just the detoxification. It's the movement of the body, the exercise. It's the sleep. It's the stress management. It's all the things. And there's just not one magic bullet. And when you're doing really well in the gym, maybe your sleep's not great, right? But you've got to kind of keep your finger on all these little pieces. And like I mentioned before, generations in the past didn't have the toxicity that we have today. So there's this big elephant in the room. And you mentioned EMFs. We don't see EMFs. Jamie, yesterday, I normally do my podcasting earlier in the day, and I'm off my computer by maybe 1 o'clock, and then I'll get back on, but I'll go outside, get some sunshine. I had to work through 3 o'clock, and my brain felt great in the morning. I had a massive headache yesterday afternoon, and it's the EMFs. You can't see them. They're there, and so that's just one aspect. We don't see the heavy metals. We don't see the microplastics. We don't see the fluoride that I just did a podcast on that's in our water that the government is claiming is bad for children's IQ. You guys, this is the government that's coming out and saying that, right? So we are being attacked. I mean, you cannot trust that your water out of your faucet is good and that any water filtration system is sufficient, right? What about the pool that you're swimming in? What about the shower you're taking that's not your drinking water filtration? So talk about some of the big things, because this is overwhelming to a lot of people, right? So what are the top tips that you would give parents that they can do today that are actionable, that are doable? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, and you know what? I always like to start with free things because people, I think that we've also gotten very, I have a symptom, here's a supplement. And that is also very allopathic model. And I think that what we have to remember is that we have to start with the foundations. We have to start with the pillars of health. You know, you're not going to live 4 minutes without air. You're not going to, you'll go crazy and start hallucinating without 4 nights of sleep. You are, you know, you're not going to survive without water. I think it's 4 days, something like that. So water, sleep, air. Those are my top 3 that are really free, and sunshine. Okay. So go for a walk. Start that as like something that you can do with your family. We know that walking after you eat balances your blood sugar. It helps you with digestion. So that's what a nice connection to make with the family. Put the phones away, put the games away, put it away and go for a walk with your family every night. What a blessing of time with your family and a habit that started as a young age. So you're checking off all of these boxes with just a simple walk as a family after dinner.
I want to add to that a side positive. I have moms that say, Sarah, how do you have such a good relationship with your kids? What they want to talk to you? I can't even get my child to the dinner table. And I say, well, first of all, that's a you problem. You got to make it's demanded that my kids are at the dinner table when I'm going to pay for the food that I'm cooking. However, I will going on walks with anybody, but especially your children. Think of it. You are physically moving side by side in the same direction. So you're on the same page. And it's also a time that I have found that the kids will kind of take a deep breath and they'll talk. They'll tell me things that they won't normally tell me. You know, how's school going, their friends, what's troubling them. Gosh, emotional things that they don't really have time to say to you later on when they're on their Instagram or they're doing their homework or whatever. But it also puts you in the same movement forward, which psychologically is a huge thing. And it also is lowering your stress level. You're lowering your cortisol. So the barriers are down. So it's more than just a physical positive as far as what you're talking about, but just bonding with your children at that time. That is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. And that checks off that love, that human connection, which we can't survive without as well. So you're checking so many boxes off with a walk. And also if you're doing it after dinner, you're getting in the habit of just getting ready for bed. So bringing you're outside, your eyes are seeing that evening light, which we know is so important for melatonin levels in the body. So you're checking off so many boxes with an evening after dinner walk. And don't pop back on the devices afterwards, allow the body, keep the lights low in the house, have a bath, let them take a shower with some lavender oil or something, create the routines. We see so many influencers on Instagram with nighttime routines and morning routines. Start that now with your children. Give them a routine to get them to get back to bed and bring that nervous system down so they can get sleep, because kids need sleep.
Yes.
They need sleep. And that's another thing that you can do to really help, because we know that that's number one. In my opinion, sleep is number one. We have to get to sleep so that our bodies can heal and rebalance. And we need to get good, deep sleep. So setting that up is really important. Getting daily sunshine. These are things that should be like bare minimum, right? Water, I always say it's very important. Try to get good filtered water. This is a challenge, but try to do that. Make sure they're drinking half their body weight in water. And I get some movement in. Again, that goes back to the walk. So you're checking that off. As far as diet is concerned, I think that this is where it is the most work as a parent, but also you're going to see the most value out of the money and the time that you're spending when you are prioritizing a well-rounded whole foods diet, and you are making the sacrifice to whether it has to be meal planned, made ahead, involve the family. These are things that are so important and non-negotiable in my mind, because you can't out supplement a poor diet.
No, you can't. I love supplements, but diet, sleep, movement are priority. And there are easy ways. I don't know about you, but I buy my wild meats from ranches around the country, Wisconsin, New Jersey. They come from wherever, but they show up at my doorstep from these family farms, and it's cutting out the middleman, so it's no more expensive. But what's so fantastic is my 22-year-old son, who will eat 3 steaks, and my daughter, who doesn't want a half a steak. They come frozen in individual packages, and the kids can actually defrost them themselves and learn how to cook. And when you teach your child how to cook, even at 4 years old, 5 years old, think about the time you're saving later on, right?
Yeah.
And then they take ownership. You think they're going to throw away their lunch at school if they cook it or if they make it? No. Right?
And that's one of the benefits that I've had the experience to have my children home with me, homeschooling, is we've really integrated cooking into our daily, and them, okay, show me how you are going to make a plate that hits all of the important things that you need to be filling your body with today. And that's important, but that can be done. It can be done for breakfast. It can be done for dinner with your kids. It's important to teach them and give them the responsibility, and they will eat things that they wouldn't normally eat when they're preparing it and having the even growing them outside and picking it and then creating a meal with it. They love to do that. They love to look up recipes and be involved. And I think that that's important. It's really, really important to include them, because it creates those habits, like you said.
And when you teach them the why, there's so
Right.
many parents that will say, don't do that, but they're not telling the child why. Don't do that, because you're going to burn your hand and it's going to hurt. And then we're going to have to go to the hospital and get it cleaned out. And then you're not going to be able to play with your friends because you're at the hospital instead. Oh, okay, Mom, then I'm not going to do it. Versus, don't do that. I don't know why, so I'm just going to do it again. Well, you want to eat these foods because you want to grow the muscles so you can be the best soccer player on the field. Or, and all 3 of my kids have different goals, different aspirations. One had learning issues. The other, my son Jackson had his immune system issues. My other daughter had energy issues. She was anemic, asthmatic, allergies, over anything. So I pinned what was important to them, why you do things. You want to eat these foods so you can be strong. You want to eat these foods so you don't need your nebulizer. You want to eat these foods so we don't have that cancer come back, right? You have what is important to them so they can identify with it, take it on themselves, and then, be more intrinsically motivated. It's not, okay, eat your protein, then you can have your Skittles.
Yeah, it's
Right?
important to teach them that. And I always taught my kids, why you're not going to, what sugar does to the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of being like, no, you're sick, you can't have sugar, or no, we're not going to have this. Why aren't we going to eat this? What does it directly do to the immune system? And one of my most favorite sayings is, where there is a why, there is a will. And where there's a will, there's a way. And so teaching kids the why they are taking a particular supplement, like you said, why they're eating the foods, why they can't or shouldn't eat certain foods. Like in our household, artificial colors are a absolute non-negotiable. It's not negotiable. There's many things that I might bend on here and there in certain situations, but and artificial colors are paint, and we don't eat paint. Would you eat paint? That's what I always say to what I used to say to them. And they were like, we don't want to eat paint. And so I say to them, look, we have so many different options nowadays than even 10 years ago when I was starting living this lifestyle. There's so many different, Halloween's coming up. There's so many different candies without that artificial colors and flavors and preservatives that you can switch out. So we always have done that. My kids go trick-or-treating. They enjoy themselves. They give their candy away, and I switch them out with something that they know that they can have and that they're going to enjoy without the negative benefits. And they are proud of that. And so those whys are very, very, very important.
Okay, so beyond the sleep, the movement, the diet, what's next?
What's next, I think, is really dependent on what symptoms and where your child is struggling. So, you have to take a look at the symptoms. If they're having symptoms, working with a practitioner or taking a look at or becoming the practitioner for yourself and looking at what protocols you might want to work through to help them rebalance. To me, I think that it's important for everyone to be working through heavy metals and parasites on a yearly basis, right? Or bi-yearly basis. So that's what I would recommend. I would also really take a look at the toxicities and where you can limit those. So I know that we talked about what those were, but like maybe it's important to take a real look at what the toxicities are and how to reduce those in your daily lifestyle. So I just keep coming back to the phone in my head because I just think that what I see with children, my children are 11 and 13. I have twins that are 11 and my son is 13, and their age group seems to be getting the phones, the ear pods, the skincare routines at 12 years old. So what are they putting on their skin? What are the detergents that you're using? What are the perfumes and body lotions and softeners? All of those things. Take a real inventory of that, and I don't think it's ever too late to make a switch, right? I hear from a lot of parents, well, I wish I would have started that, or I wish I would have never gave them a phone, or I wish I would have started feeding them a certain way when they were younger, or I wish that I didn't ever let them have XYZ. And it's not a mentality that I understand, because I think that you can always start again. You can always say, I learned something new today, and this isn't healthy for you. and this is why.
Yes.
And we are going to make a change because I want you to live the healthiest life that you possibly can. And so I'm sorry that I exposed you to this, right? Or I'm sorry that I started this habit or pattern or whatever, but we're going to go back to basics. And this is what we're going to do. And it's not a punishment. In fact, this is going to be something that you will thank me later down the road. I think that as you spoke, your children are really grateful, and they're a bit older than mine. And I know how grateful mine are at 11 and 13. I can't even imagine how they're going to feel at 22 and 23 when children are really suffering with self-image and ADD and ADHD, and they can't concentrate, so they're getting in trouble, which creates this disconnect with parents because parents are just like, they're exhausted, and it creates this spiral that I was talking about earlier. And it's just, you have to be the parent.
Yeah.
And you have to say, I am the authority.
You know, people think that they want to be their children's best friends, but your child wants you to be disciplinary, to be guiding them, to be, not authoritarian, but being the voice of reason. And my kids in college, when they go off to college and they see what other people are doing and how they're living, and yes, they're popping their ADHD medication, and everything's not so great because it's not all on Instagram. They're seeing what's going on behind closed doors. That's when they really appreciate you. Now, they also can come home and tell you where you've done some things wrong. And I'll say, hey, I've done the best that I can. And I've searched for the answers. And you just wait till you have your own kids. But you are giving your child also the gift of, don't stop with that answer. There might be more. Like, keep searching. There's more challenges. There's more solutions. And in this world, and Jamie, I can't believe we're out of time. There are going to be new threats. There are going to be new toxins. There are going to be, the fake meats and you don't know what, even at Whole Foods, there's GMOs and fake foods that you have to be careful. You can't just take it for granted that you can go into Whole Foods and buy food.
And learn together, right? I am not a doctor. I didn't come from a place of a health expert. I came from a mother on a mission. And I was going to learn what it was to help take care of these kids and teach them to take care of themselves so they can go out in the world and be the change. And I already see how they influence their friends around them. And that's really important. And I think that we have so many future podcasts to talk about and dive into all of these little details, because there is so much to talk about. But if you are at a point where you're like, I want to get started, start with those foundations, start with those free foundations, and work yourself through some protocols to just check off the list, and reach out to experts like, Sara or myself and anyone to help you, because we can guide you. We can guide you to the courses to take. We can guide you to the supplement. You have to be responsible. I always say personal responsibility is everything in this world right now. We have to be responsible, not, oh, the government allows that in, or this is what food is available to me. No, we have to be responsible for our health and our children's health, and we can be.
Yeah. Jamie, where can people find you?
I am on Instagram at Resilient Mama. I also have resilientintegrativehealth.com.
Amazing. And we will definitely continue this conversation. So thank you so much for being here. And everyone else, thank you for listening. Our discussion does not have to stop here. If you're wondering where to start with the topics we talked about, the heavy metals, the protection, parasite cleanses, all of that stuff, boosting the immune system. I've got articles on the website, SaraBantaHealth.com, just for children. And I've got the cleanses as well. And if you don't know where to start, you can just email me directly through the website, SaraBantaHealth.com. Happy to put together a personalized protocol for you. Follow me on social media at Accelerated Health Products and find this podcast and all the podcasts when you look up Accelerated Health with Sara Banta on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and over 100 platforms. You can use coupon podcast10 for 10% off site-wide on the website if you just want to try with something. So thank you for joining us and have a great week.